Hello YouTube, welcome to the garage. Back working on this 2007 Toyota Camry rescue project, and unfortunately I had a family emergency and a lot of this project I didn't get the video like I wanted to. But there are a couple things on here I want to touch base on that hopefully will help somebody, and one of them was the bleeding procedure for getting all the air out of the cooling system. Once I got this car running, the radiator was leaking, so I had to put a new radiator in it, which was pretty straightforward. But the bleeding procedure, as far as a lot of people were complaining, had a problem with not being able to get the air bled out of the heater core. Okay, and so as far as Toyota is concerned, they just said to drain, close the drain cock and any of the drain plugs if you took them out, and then slowly fill the radiator with the Toyota, of course, approved coolant. Okay, so it's and then after that, again, it stresses the proper coolant. Slowly pour coolant into the radiator reservoir tank until it reaches the full line. Okay, the reservoir tank is over here, and the full line is right there where the end of my flashlight is. Okay, and then obviously fill it there. But so it said to fill this, and then what you're supposed to do is once you fill the radiator and this, it doesn't say to put the cap back on, but then you're supposed to squeeze the hoses. Okay, and once you squeeze the hoses, then it says to install the radiator cap, subassembly, and reservoir tank cap. I'm guessing this would be a subassembly, and the reservoir tank cap would be that. Okay, and then to start the engine, warm it up. It says to turn the heat on, so I'm not sure if it'll open a valve to make sure the heater core fills up, but it says to turn it on to hot. And then once the engine gets up temperature, stop the engine, wait till it cools down, and then add coolant to the full line on the radiator reservoir. Okay, fill it to there. And then it talks about putting all the plastic guards back on. It does not say to open this back up. Okay, and so I'm just going by what Toyota says here. So, to recap, it says to close the drain cock, fill this slowly, okay, until it's full. Then fill this until it gets up to the full line, which is right there, right where that edge is. Okay, and then you're supposed to put the cap back on. Put the cap back on there. Start it up. Put the climate control onto heat. Let the car warm up. Shut it off. Let it cool down, and then you're supposed to check here. It doesn't say anything about checking here. Okay, but that's the way Toyota did it. The way the Toyota says to do it. I didn't do it that way. But I was watching several videos, and one of the main ones that I saw was this is one of these no spill kits. The way they said to do it was to put this on here, and you got this hose over here. I'm trying to do this one-handed. This hose you're to put on the bleed screw, which is right there. Okay. And so hook the hose to that. Have this on here. Fill the radiator with coolant, and then you were supposed to, according to the videos I watched, start the engine, rev it up to between 2 and 2,500 RPM, and let it run until it gets hot. And it talks about different bubbling coming up through here. And then finally, you'll get just straight fluid coming up through here. And, so, okay. That's what, a couple different guys did it that way. And I was reading the comments, and they said it worked. Okay. Well, I got to thinking about it. And, okay, if the problem is the heater core is not being bled very well, and you have to do all this rigmarole, then what I thought about was to use one of these, the vacuum system. Okay, I got this specifically for bleeding the cooling systems on Ford trucks, because on a Ford truck, over here you would have the degas bottle, and that's where you fill the system, but it is, and the heater core is on this side of the truck, but it's higher than the degas bottle. So you have to pull it into a vacuum using something like this in order to fill the heater core. And I got to thinking, well, if this will work for that, and let me just turn around and show you what it looks like. You put this in the in the radiator. Take the cap off, put this in there, and then this part here you would put on, okay, and you hook an air hose to this, and it's a Venturi effect. It'll draw the system into a vacuum. You hook your air to this, then open this valve, and it'll draw the radiator into a vacuum. And the hoses will collapse and everything, draw it into a vacuum, and you go by your little gauge here. Once it gets up to the the red line, stop. Okay, and then you would turn then you would turn this off. I'm sorry, it's hard to turn. Okay, there you go. You turn that off, remove the vacuum portion, and then there's a hose, which I don't have it right here, but there's a hose that clicks on here, and you put it in the gallon jug of antifreeze. Okay, what I actually did, this thing holds, only took less than 2 gallons, but I put a couple of gallons in a bucket just so I didn't have to switch it out, and then open the valve and let it fill the system. Okay, and it did it. It filled it up right to the top, and I was going on the assumption that it did fill the heater core, but I wanted to prove that. So what I did, let me get this out of our way here, is I use this system exactly the way it's supposed to. It works perfectly on Ford trucks and stuff, and I've done them, a lot of Ford trucks like that. And so I figured since the filling the heater core was the issue, it should do the same thing, was my school of thought. So what I did is, I filled it with the vacuum system, and then I did a test. I took this and hooked it up, just like they said, put this on here, and that hose, I did hook on that bleeder valve. But what I did is I had to take this bolt, these nuts off, and that bolt to get these 2 brackets out so I could get to that. That's it takes a 10 millimeter to open that. So what I did is I put that setup like everybody else was doing, and then I started it up because I'm assuming it was full, but I wanted to prove that. I wanted to make sure that I was doing it with that method, that I wasn't getting a bunch of air out of this thing. And so I hooked this method up, started the car up, and truth be told, I did not rev it up to 2,000 RPM. I just let it idle, and I wanted to see what happened. So I let this sit there, and according to the videos I watched, when you knew it was completely bled, you were just getting fluid coming up through here with no bubbles. And so what I did, I put that on, started the car up, let it idle, and as it warmed up, I could see fluid coming up this, and minimal bubbles. The videos they show, they actually did it. They were getting all kinds of bubbles out of here, and spitting fluid, coolant and that kind of stuff. But it got a couple little bubbles out, but once the thing started warming up, the fluid kept creeping up here until I had fluid running out into there. And that was the sign, according to the videos I watched, that it was full. So to me, logic dictates, if I used the vacuum system and filled it, then I did a test with that system and with it running, and the only thing I got was the end result of their way of filling it, is I was getting fluid up through that hose into the funnel. So logic dictates that the heater core was full and didn't need to be bled. It was bled using that system. So I said, I'm sorry I didn't get a video of me actually doing this whole thing, but you know, maybe this will help someone. I can't remember how much this kit was. I got it from Amazon. I can put a link in the description below, and yes, I'm an Amazon affiliate. I get a couple of shekels if you use that link. It doesn't cost you any more. It just helps me out greatly, and I do appreciate it. But you know, if you can just use a system like that, yeah, I'm sure this is more expensive. I got that at Harbor Freight, maybe 15 bucks, maybe. You know, I can't remember. It wasn't a whole lot, but you know, if you can afford that, and of course you need a source of, you know, you need either a vacuum pump or you need a air compressor that can stay out, it doesn't take a whole lot of air, but you still need a compressor. So that's an extra added expense. Either a vacuum pump, you know, I do air conditioning, so I have a vacuum pump, but I also have shop air, and that's the way I did it. It just worked real easy. You know, I didn't have a way to hook my air conditioning vacuum pump to, you know, it's a Robin Air, it's a good one, but you know, I didn't have I would have had to make some sort of a hose to hook it to that, so I just used the shop air. Worked great. So I said, hopefully this will help, you know, somebody. You know, yeah, does that work? Absolutely. But if you can afford, you know, a vacuum system like that, and if you have an air compressor, it didn't take a few minutes to fill this thing, and this, you know, was kind of a long, drawn-out process. So what it's worth, I hope that helps somebody, and so do me a favor, you know, like and subscribe, you know the deal, and I'll see you in the next video.